All right, let's move out west. We mentioned Lincoln quickly. Let's go to his land. USC, a big win. I don't know how many times I can say big. They come from behind. They're down early in that game to UCLA. Caleb Williams, phenomenal, 470 yards, 3 touchdowns. And USC is now in pole position to win this Pac-12 conference. We've talked about how this conference has sort of cannibalized itself this year.
Yes.
Bunch of teams knocking each other off. I mean, Washington, I looked at the standings today. All of a sudden, Washington's sitting there with just 2 losses on the year after it seemed like they had 2 losses 2 months ago. And there's a lot of good football teams in that league. USC, if they can come out of it, I have a hard time believing that they might get snubbed from that college football playoff. So for the purpose of Overreaction Monday, Felder, if USC wins out, they're in. Am I right or wrong?
You're right. I think they're in. I mean, I think they've got to be in. I mean, we're not just talking USC. We're talking about a brand that goes. They go hard. Because here's the thing. Let's think about what we've already said. We've already said that Georgia's in. We've already said Ohio State's in, right? TCU, if they went out, they're in. You throw USC in the mix, let's get froggy, baby. Let's go. USC against Ohio State or USC against Georgia. That's a game
to watch, just to watch. I don't know if it's going to be really a 12-rounder, but it certainly be.
I don't need it. I'm not talking about it. Did you see what I'm doing? I'm not talking about a 12.
Oh, yeah. Ratings for sure.
Money. I need money for my family. Oh, yeah. You got to put them in. And this is the part that's been precarious for TCU for a long time, for the last back half of the season. TCU has already had this happen to them.
Yep.
They've already had Ohio State go 3 spots ahead of them and be like,
yep.
Hey, man, we didn't do anything wrong. They're like, yeah, but we need money for our family.
And and
Ohio State, Alabama, we need this game.
And TCU, game. They have to be breathing very, very cautiously down there.
Yeah. I talked to Brian Eskridge. I talked to Landry Burdine. Like, both of those guys, they both are like, they have to be perfect. Otherwise, any excuse to get them out, to get a team like an Ohio State, to get a team like a Michigan, to get a team like a USC in, they're going to take that.
And plus, SC has a nationally televised game, primetime game against Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Carson Palmer won his Heisman against Notre Dame doing this. The other teams have made a big splash back in the BCS and these big primetime November, get close to Thanksgiving games. They got that. Following week, they'll have Oregon or Utah in a big primetime Pac-12 game. If they beat both of those 2 teams, it's going to be awfully noisy coming from Southern California. That is enough. That's enough spring for them to get over TCU. Possibly even undefeated. One thing I keep watching when I watch SC, I keep saying it, they're a year ahead. They're a year ahead. This is house money. How cool is that? How cool is that? Then I remember in The Last Dance. You guys remember The Last Dance?
Like the Michael Jordan doc?
Yes, the most anticipated thing in the world because now COVID hit and now here we get it. I remember B.J. Armstrong saying when Jordan returned back to the Bulls, the dynamic changed. And he said, Michael's job was to close the game out. Yeah. He let us play. Our job was to get the game competitive down the back stretch, and he will go in and win it.
Finish the drill.
And I keep trying to, how do you fit this around SC? To me, that's close to SC. They're not knockout artists. They don't pounce on you early. Arizona was within a touchdown. Cal was within 8. They get past UCLA after DTR throws 3 interceptions.
Yep.
It's still only a field goal. Doesn't matter. If you have Caleb Williams on the field, and from defense, special teams, and all the stuff he's already doing down the first 3 quarters, get me in the 4th quarter. I'll win this. I'll close it out. And that's just what he's been doing. That is the best way I can process what are the Trojans. They aren't knockout artists. They've been winning all these split decisions, but they have Caleb Williams. So really, if you put him in any game, if USC is able to kind of
hang around,
smoke and mirrors or hang around or tie up gloves or do whatever it is, and they get into round 10, 11, 12, with any of these teams, they have Caleb Williams. It's going to be like the story slowly is how much can he will these guys to do coming down these next 2 weeks, and then we'll see what he does in the playoffs if they get there.
See,
George, I got.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
I'll throw a quick number and then I'll throw it right back to you. But so I think to your point about not being a knockout artist, right? They haven't thrown the first punch in a game in a month. If you go back and look at first quarters, and we're not talking death row here of opponents, right? They played Arizona, Cal, Colorado, and then UCLA. They've been tied or trailing at the end of the first quarter in all 4 of those games.
Wow.
And have they found a way to win? Hell yeah, they have, because of Caleb Williams. But it's just interesting to me because I wonder when the quality of opponent goes up, which I don't know if you would say that it is against Notre Dame. That's a team that people are very polarized on. But certainly whoever they get in the Pac-12 championship, and then if they got to the playoff, that's the type of thing where do you really want to find yourself 2 scores down to Georgia? And I know Caleb Williams can climb out of any hole from what we've seen, but that's a hole I don't know that team has seen yet. Felder, what were you going to say, though?
What I was going to say was it's very similar to what you're going to say is TCU's done the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Slow out of the blocks.
And then they try to get it going. The big thing for me with USC and I know, George, I know you're a quarterback guy. Quarterbacks make the world go round. But I think that play calling and that scheme is impressive. It fits. The touchdown that Jordan Addison scored in the third quarter that put them up.
The deep sideline right shot.
Yes, but it wasn't just a deep sideline right shot. It was tight end on a wing, Jordan Addison in the backfield. As a running back. The actual running back split out wide. And UCLA Greg was completely confused.
And just for those who are rolling with us, the Cowboys did this way back when they put T.O. in the backfield. Defenses kind of blindly look at offensive players like
personnel packages.
They just look at certain packages. If I'm a linebacker, I have whoever is back there next to the quarterback.
Bingo.
Very rarely do they turn and specify he's wearing a single digit or an 80-something number. If I'm a corner, whoever comes trotting all the way out by the boundary, I
go there
regardless. So if you send a fullback out to me as a corner, I guess I got him. And you put your best receiver in the backfield.
Bingo.
This 250-pound linebacker, I guess I got him. And that's what Michael Felder is saying. Just by switching roles, not effectiveness, just by switching roles, it triggers matchups that no one wants on defense. Who cares? Go guard our fullback. Take your 4-3-5 corner and guard that fullback. Guard the hell out of him. And then good luck with this linebacker in the middle. And that's what Felder is saying. And again, going back to Lincoln Riley, these two are in a mesh, really, in a way, Ryan Day and Stroud are. Hooker and what's Heupel. And it's still O'Brien and Bryce Young. But when you see that pitcher catcher deal, that type of synergy, I know what you are. I know how to get the most out of you. I mean, it's vicious. Plus, they already had a year together at Oklahoma.
Yep.
A lot of familiarity coming into this deal. Now Caleb just gets to steer the shit.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, it's dangerous. I don't think even if you're a Georgia fan, if you're an Ohio State fan, I don't think there's a fan out there who would say they're not a little bit afraid in their core deep down of what Caleb Williams could do. And obviously that pairing with Lincoln is a major reason why. So I just quickly, and then we'll move because we got a lot of other stuff to get to still. And I'm holding us up because I'm loving this conversation so much, quite frankly. But so back to the idea of, okay, USC is just in. They control their own destiny, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
What's the stat? What's the stack ranking of teams who control their own destiny? Because Georgia's in no matter what. Big Ten champ is in no matter what. That's a win this game, you're in game. I would think, regardless of what we want to say for ratings, just given how many teams have lost games this year, I got to think undefeated TCU Big 12 champ would be third. Am I wrong on that? Like, does USC really jump up ahead of TCU in that order? Or is this maybe they jump, I don't know, Clemson? Like, Clemson's still on the peripheral of this. They would jump the loser of Michigan, Ohio State.
They're already ahead of Clemson.
They're ahead of Clemson already. I think Clemson's out. I think Clemson should just get their mind wrapped around going to somewhere nice, sunny, get you some nice little bowl gifts, go see a nice team, get the new wave up and running. Clemson don't stress yourself on this stuff, Clemson. Don't stress yourself. Just go be easy. The ones who should be locked in, TCU, USC. And LSU, you got to keep going down to Baton Rouge. If we're talking about teams that can control their destiny, no one has to get a bigger win than LSU.
Sure.
Win in Atlanta, you go. Lose, home. And it's the same for TCU and it's the same for USC. So really, truly, LSU is sitting at the same table, not as clean, not as strong, but same fate.
Yeah.
Same fate.
So is LSU third in that rank then? If those three teams win out, if USC wins out, one loss, Pac-12 champ, TCU wins out, undefeated Big 12 champ, LSU wins out, beats Georgia, 2-loss SEC champ.
LSU's in for sure, but they're not the number one seed.
Sure, and then we'll get Georgia on the back end. Then that's four.
No, because then you still got Michigan, Ohio State though. Somebody's got to be out from that.
If LSU wins, the Big Ten champ is the number one seed because they're the two teams sitting behind them. So it'd be Big Ten champ first seed. I think LSU's probably fourth. Maybe they're third if TCU gets in. Big Ten champ one. You could still put Georgia. I don't know what they do with Georgia, LSU. If I lose to you, could I still stay ahead of you? Either way, those three teams are in. Big Ten champ and two from SEC.
And then TCU.
So it would be USC who then gets outside looking in, right?
But wait a second. We just said it 15 minutes ago. And Felder, you made the great point. If the Trojans, with the brand they have, go into South Bend and then have another big knockout game against some heavyweights, either going to be Utah as a top 10 team or an Oregon's a top 10, 12 team. They beat those two teams. We just talked about how USC now could have enough spring to hop over the Frogs, even an undefeated Frog.
No, you can't leave an undefeated Power 5 team out. You cannot.
Or at least I don't think you can do that in a year where you're putting a 2-loss team in. I think you might be able to do it with a 1-loss team, but two SEC teams with one with two would be crazy.
Technically, we didn't put LSU in there; they got themselves in there. Oh, and they only got themselves in there by the crown. They had to go get that crown.
Sure, and I understand. All I'm saying is the 6 guys that made the decision on what the playoff is going to be, the 5 conference commissioners plus Jack Swarbrick from Notre Dame. None of them signed up to have one of their undefeated teams not get in. They never signed up for that, and that will never happen.
So, but I always go back. When I hear that, I always go back. When they all sat down, knowing you have a 4-seat dance, we have 5 conferences, and there's an absolute way that all of our conference champs could be undefeated. Somebody's not getting in. So they had to have seen the scenario already. We could have an undefeated whoever champ and go home.